So for those of you who don't know, David Haye versus Mark Demori is not the only heavyweight clash this week. There are in fact two world title fights in the heavyweight division taking place this weekend. The main one for the WBC belt, Deontay Wilder versus Artur Szpilka. The second one for the IBF belt that was stripped from Tyson Fury, Vyacheslav Glazkov versus Charles Martin. Both of those heavyweight classes are fights that I've actually not found it easy to come up with a definite prediction on. We're going to start with Deontay Wilder versus Artur Szpilka in this video. Let me start by saying I watched Dwyer's video on this with great interest. You know, he legitimately, he genuinely seems to be of the belief that Artur Szpilka has a very, very strong chance in this fight. You know, Dwyer is someone whose opinion I always respect and I always look out for. And he's someone who he doesn't get it right all the time, but when he does get it right, sometimes he gets it very, very right. And you know, he's talking about Artur Szpilka, how his stance could confuse Wilder, how his trainer will know how to deal with Wilder, how he's got all the tools to cause some problems. And you know, I can see that. And one thing I would concede is that Artur Szpilka, for me, is actually one of the best fighters that Deontay Wilder's fought in his career. I mean, Bermane Stiverne at the time was a lot higher rated than Artur Szpilka is now. Certainly in terms of my private rankings, I wouldn't have Szpilka in my top 25. I'd have him somewhere between 25 and 35 in the heavyweight division. And I'd still, even to this day, have Bermane Stiverne ranked higher than that, based on previous achievement. I'd also have Malik Scott ranked higher than that. But I would have Szpilka ranked higher than Johan Dupar and than Eric Molina, who have been Deontay Wilder's two most recent fights. My point is that this is actually a step up in class for Deontay Wilder compared to his two most recent fights. And if you look at Deontay Wilder's entire resume going back in the past, how many fighters from that resume would you actually pick to beat Artur Szpilka if they were to fight right now? Would you really be confident that Bermane Stiverne beats Szpilka if they fought right now? I personally wouldn't be. You know, Artur Szpilka, he's there or thereabouts in the context of this heavyweight division. You know, he's got some decent form with Thomas Ademic, etc. And he does certainly pose some threats. You know, he's got a good straight left hand. He is a southpaw. He is awkward. You know, how's he going to go about beating Deontay Wilder? That's the question. Well, Dwyer refers to the stance. That's certainly a definite one. The fact that he can get low, go under Deontay Wilder's punches, are, you know, is something that's very, very interesting if it actually happens in practice. I also like Szpilka's body punching. You know, I think Szpilka's an underrated body puncher, and I'd like to see him, you know, throwing that big straight left to Deontay Wilder's body, seeing how he reacts to that. You know, Szpilka can punch a bit. If you look at Szpilka's highlights, you know, he looks like a knockout puncher. I'm not actually sure that he's got elite level knockout power. You know, when he steps up in class, his power seems to be slightly less. I certainly think Deontay Wilder's going to be the puncher in there. But Szpilka does bring certain things to the table. And I do understand that he's in very, very good shape for this. And he's taking training and taking his boxing career very, very seriously. So for Deontay Wilder, who's an established champion, but at the same time is a champion who hasn't necessarily faced many tests in terms of his defences, Szpilka's an interesting one. You know, he's only got one loss, full of desire, coming to fight, awkward southpaw, good trainer, some punching power, good body puncher. You know, there's some ingredients there. Szpilka also moves quite well. You know, he's got decent movement, and that, combined with his stance, combined with the fact he can get low a bit, makes him an awkward guy, you know, a real awkward guy to hit. I think my concern here, though, is range. I think range is going to be such a key factor in this fight. I actually don't see Szpilka as being an inside fighter. You know, whilst he is a smaller guy compared to Deontay Wilder, and whilst he, you know, he's not one of these heavyweights who is one of the giants of the heavyweight division, I see him as someone who despite the fact he messes around with angles, and despite the fact he moves a lot, and despite the fact that on occasion you do see him teeing off with hooks and trying to close the distance, I actually think he's at his most comfortable at that three-quarter range. You know, I remember the Bryant Jennings fight, and I felt he had a slight tendency in that fight to stand in front of Bryant Jennings. And I'm just concerned that Deontay Wilder is a much bigger puncher than Bryant Jennings, and a much bigger man than Bryant Jennings. And I'm just wondering that, you know, if he does that again, and if he either needs to be outside of Deontay's jab or on Deontay's chest, I think Szpilka's got a slight tendency to stand at that three-quarter range. If you fight a guy like Deontay Wilder, that can put you in trouble. That really can. The other major concern of Szpilka, if you look at the one fight where he really stepped up, and you know, you could say that Adamek is a good step up, but for me, I've never really rated Thomas Adamek as a heavyweight. I always thought he was slightly overrated, to be honest. And I'm not 100% sure that beating an ageing Thomas Adamek, who was a light heavyweight, you know, at best, really represents strong form compared to Deontay Wilder. So if you look at the one time where he actually stepped up Szpilka, I thought he really got found out by Bryant Jennings. I mean, don't get me wrong, he was competitive for spells in that fight, but he couldn't live with Jennings. I remember Jennings hurt him to the body, you know, and Jennings stopped him. I think he dropped him 2 or 3 times, and I felt he broke Szpilka's will and stopped him. Now, I'm not saying Szpilka hasn't improved since then. I've also heard he's in better condition since then. But Bryant Jennings really is not the biggest puncher in the world, you know. We saw him go 12 with Mike Perez, you know. We saw him go 12 without hurting Vladimir Klitschko. He didn't hurt Luis Ortiz recently. You know, those are all decent heavyweights, very decent heavyweights. But the way Bryant Jennings was able to hurt Artur Szpilka, and the way he was able to find those gaps in his defence, you know, hurt him to the body, hurt him to the head, I just wonder if this guy's going to be a little bit vulnerable to Deontay Wilder. We're talking about a guy who, despite all his awkwardness, can get hit. You know, he's not a defensive master, Szpilka. And we're talking about Deontay Wilder. Whether you like him or you don't like him, Deontay Wilder has punching power. Now, there is an argument to say Deontay Wilder's punching power has been overrated. You know, certainly since he stepped up in class, the first round knockouts have completely ceased. Yeah, I'm not saying that Deontay Wilder is necessarily a George Foreman puncher or an Ernie Sabers puncher. I'm not saying that whatsoever. What I would say is, in today's heavyweight division, Deontay Wilder is a big, big puncher. You know, one of the bigger punchers in the sport. I'm not saying he necessarily punches as hard as Vladimir Klitschko or Alexander Povetkin, but apart from those guys, I think he's right up there in terms of the punching stakes, you know. And I think that whilst The Wire does raise some good points about Szpilka being awkward and getting low, I just feel like Deontay's going to tag him. I think Szpilka's going to be in front of Deontay Wilder too much. I think he's going to be moving, but he's going to be moving and kind of be in that three-quarter range. And I think Szpilka is going to fight long. I don't think he's going to be strong enough and skilled enough and technical enough on the inside to break Wilder down. I think he's someone who's going to fight long. And I think Deontay Wilder is going to tag him eventually and catch him. I think Deontay Wilder will stop him. I don't think it will go as late as his other fights, because I don't think Szpilka's got the same durability. Somewhere between 5 and 8, I reckon Deontay Wilder will stop him. Now, the other thing about Szpilka, he is slightly wild. You know, he throws big punches, he throws punches with bad intentions, and he throws them aggressively, you know. He is someone who's prepared to take a risk to land a big punch. You know, Deontay Wilder, he's not a defensive master. His chin is up in the air. He's not got the best head movement. He backs up in straight lines. You know, despite the fact that Deontay Wilder has never lost and has never been knocked out in a pro ring, questions remain over his punch resistance. Questions remain over his durability. You know, Szpilka's got a chance in this fight. He's a better fighter than Depart. He's a better fighter than Molina. Both of those guys made Wilder not look too good. And it wouldn't surprise me if Szpilka has some effectiveness in this fight. You know, don't rule him out on a puncher's chance as well, because when you've got a guy who throws wild power punches, you never know. It only takes 1 second in heavyweight boxing and the game's changed. But I do just think he's a bit wide. He's a bit looping. And I actually think Deontay Wilder is the better athlete, the better mover, the harder puncher. And I think that while Szpilka has the potential to be awkward, on the balance of probability, I'm seeing Deontay Wilder. And I think Szpilka will be spirited, but I think range is going to be a big factor. I do think he'll get caught, and I do think Wilder will stop him. And I think it'll be middle rounds. You know, I don't expect this to go 10 rounds or 11 rounds. You know, I think it'll be earlier than that. Let me know your thoughts on this fight. If you've enjoyed the video, please give me the thumbs up. I'd appreciate it. I'm certainly going to do a post-fight video of this fight. I'll look into, you know, some analysis afterwards, and I'm going to cover some of the other heavyweight action and other action coming up as well. So if you've enjoyed this, please subscribe to the channel. I wouldn't want you missing out on any of those videos. Many thanks for watching.